Welcome to Skagway, Alaska, a gold rush town where the past doesn't sleep. This is a place of broken promises where ghosts linger in the shadows of old hotels, saloons, and forgotten trails. From Mary, forever watching from room 23 of the Golden North, to Lydia, her rage trapped in the Red Onion's mirrors, to the Prospector haunting the Chilkoot Trail with his endless search for gold. Tonight, we're unraveling the chilling stories of Skagway's restless spirits. Tales that'll make you wonder what's watching from the dark. So settle in, turn down the lights, and join us in America's haunted heart. If you love a good ghost story, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and drop a comment. Have you ever felt a chill you couldn't explain? Oh, and don't forget to share this with your friends. Let's see who's brave enough to walk Skagway's shadows with us. Wind howled through Skagway's narrow streets, carrying the chill of an Alaskan winter in 1898. The gold rush was fading, but the Golden North Hotel stood proud, its wooden facade glowing faintly under the moon's pale light. I'd come to this remote town chasing stories, tales of prospectors, dreamers, and ghosts that lingered like frost on the windows. The locals whispered about room 23, where Mary, a young woman from the Klondike days, still waited for her fiancé, a man who never returned from the goldfields. I checked into the Golden North, my boots creaking on the polished floorboards of the lobby. The clerk, a grizzled man with eyes like chipped ice, handed me a brass key. Room 23's open tonight, he said, his voice low. Hope you're not the superstitious type. I laughed it off, but his stare followed me up the creaky staircase. The room was small, with faded wallpaper curling at the edges, and a single window overlooking the dark, jagged peaks of the Chilkoot Pass. I set my bag down, the air heavy with the scent of old wood and something else, lavender, faint and out of place. I figured it was just the hotel's charm, a relic of its past. By midnight, I was settled in, scribbling notes about Skagway's history when the temperature plummeted. My breath fogged in the dim lamplight, though the radiator hissed with heat. A soft creak broke the silence. I froze, pen in hand. The sound came again, deliberate, like footsteps pacing just beyond the door. I told myself it was another guest, maybe the wind rattling the old building. But the air grew heavier, pressing against my chest. Then I saw her. She stood by the window, her figure translucent, like mist caught in moonlight. Her dress was old-fashioned, a high-collared gown, and her dark hair spilled over her shoulders. She didn't look at me, just stared out the window, her hands clasped as if waiting for someone to appear on the empty street below. "Mary," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Her head turned slightly and her eyes met mine, hollow, gray, filled with a sorrow that made my heart lurch. The room spun. The lavender scent grew overpowering, and a faint hum filled the air, like a lullaby sung underwater. I stumbled to the door, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the knob. It wouldn't turn. Behind me, the humming stopped, replaced by a whisper, soft and desperate. "He's not coming." I spun around, but she was gone. The window was open, curtains fluttering in the icy wind I hadn't felt before. I yanked the door open and ran to the lobby, my heart pounding. The clerk was still there, polishing a glass unfazed. "Saw her, didn't you?" he said, not looking up. "Mary's been waiting a long time. She don't like being alone." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the lobby until dawn, the fire crackling as the only sound. When I checked out, the clerk handed me my bag with a knowing nod. "She'll be there tomorrow," he said. "Always is." As I stepped onto Skagway's quiet streets, the Golden North loomed behind me, its windows dark but watchful. I glanced back once, half expecting to see her silhouette in room 23. The window was empty, but the chill stayed with me, a reminder that some promises and some ghosts never leave. The morning sun barely broke through the heavy clouds over Skagway, casting a muted glow on the snow-dusted streets. I trudged away from the Golden North Hotel, my breath puffing in the frigid air, but Mary's hollow eyes and that whispered, "He's not coming," clung to me like damp cold. I needed answers, something to ground the unease churning in my my gut. The locals had mentioned another haunted spot in town, the Red Onion Saloon, a former brothel from the gold rush days. If Mary's story was real, maybe someone there could fill in the gaps. The Red Onion sign swung lazily in the wind, its faded red paint peeling like old scars. Inside the saloon was a time capsule, dark wood walls, brass fixtures, and a long bar polished by a century of hands. A handful of locals nursed their drinks, their voices low, as if afraid to wake something. I slid onto a bar stool, and the bartender, a woman with a sharp jaw and sharper eyes, sized me up. "You look like you've seen something," she said, pouring me a whiskey without asking. I told her about room 23, about Mary's ghost and the suffocating sorrow in her gaze. The bartender leaned closer, her voice dropping to a murmur. "Mary's not the only one who never left," she said. "This place has its own shadows. You heard of Lydia?" I shook my head, and she pointed to a staircase leading to the old brothel rooms upstairs. "Lydia was one of the girls here back in '98. Story goes, she fell hard for a miner who swore he'd take her away after he struck gold. He didn't. She waited, same as Mary, but her ending was uglier. They found her up there in room 14 after she took her own life. Now she's restless." I glanced at the staircase, its worn steps disappearing into shadow. The air felt heavier, like the saloon itself was listening. "You ever see her?" I asked. The bartender smirked, but her eyes were uneasy. "Not me, but folks hear things. Crying, footsteps, sometimes a scream. And the mirrors up there, they don't always show what they should." Curiosity got the better of me. I asked if I could see the rooms. She hesitated, then handed me a key. "Don't say I didn't warn you," she muttered. The staircase creaked under my weight, each step colder than the last. Room 14 was at the end of a narrow hallway, its door slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and a wave of stale air hit me, laced with something sharp. Cheap perfume, maybe, or regret. The room was small, with a sagging bed and a cracked mirror on the wall. The light from a single bulb flickered, casting jagged shadows. I stood there, half expecting nothing, when the mirror caught my eye. My reflection stared back, but something was off. My face looked pale, distorted like I was underwater. Then behind me, a figure flickered into view, a woman, young, with wild auburn hair and a tattered dress, her lips moving soundlessly. I spun around, heart hammering, but the room was empty. The mirror showed only me now, my eyes wide with panic. A low wail filled the air, soft at first, then sharper, like a blade cutting through the silence. It came from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating in my bones. The perfume smell grew stronger, choking, and the temperature plunged. I backed toward the door, but it slammed shut before I could reach it. The wail turned into words, frantic and broken. "He lied! He lied!" The mirror rattled on the wall, and in it I saw her again. Lydia, her face twisted with rage, her hands clawing at the glass as if trying to break through. I don't remember running. One moment I was in room 14. The next I was back in the saloon, gasping, the bartender's hand on my shoulder. "Told you," she said, her voice steady but her face pale. "Lydia don't take kindly to visitors." I stumbled out into the street, the cold air a slap to my senses. Skagway felt different now, its quaint charm hiding something older, hungrier. The golden north loomed in the distance, and I swore I saw a flicker in room 23's window. Mary, still waiting. Behind me, the Red Onion's sign creaked, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Lydia's eyes followed me, her whispered accusations echoing in the wind. I'd come for stories, but Skagway's ghosts had given me something else, a warning that some promises, broken or kept, bind you forever. The Skagway streets were silent as I stumbled away from the Red Onion Saloon, the weight of Lydia's wail still ringing in my ears. The town felt alive in a way it hadn't before, like the buildings themselves were holding their breath, watching me. My boots crunched on the thin layer of snow, each step pulling me further from the saloon, but no closer to shaking the chill that wasn't just from the Alaskan cold. I needed somewhere to ground myself, to make sense of Mary's sorrow and Lydia's rage. The only place open at this hour was a small diner at the edge of town, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. Inside, the diner smelled of burnt coffee and grease, a comforting contrast to the perfume perfume and lavender of the ghosts. A lone waitress, her hair pulled back in a tired bun, nodded me to a booth. I ordered coffee, black, and sat staring at the steam rising from the mug, trying to piece together what I'd seen. Mary in the Golden North, waiting for a man who never came. Lydia in the Red Onion, trapped by a betrayal that cut deeper than death. Their stories felt tangled like threads of the same cursed tapestry woven through Skagway's bones. The waitress slid into the booth across from me, her shift apparently slow enough for a chat. "You've got that look," she said, her voice rough but kind, "like you've run into one of Skagway's shadows." I hesitated, then spilled it all. Room 23, Mary's ghost. The mirror in room 14. Lydia's scream. She didn't laugh or roll her eyes. Instead, she leaned back, her gaze drifting to the window. "You're not the first," she said. "This town's built on broken dreams. Gold rush brought folks here with promises, but most left with nothing, or didn't leave at all." She told me about a third ghost, one the locals rarely spoke of. "They call him the Prospector," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He's tied to the old Chilkoot Trail just outside town. Folks say he was Mary's fiancé, or maybe Lydia's miner, or both, nobody's sure. What they do know is he never made it back. Died out there, lost in a blizzard, gold in his pack, but no warmth in his bones. Now he wanders the trail, looking for what he lost. If you hear a pickaxe in the wind, it's him." I didn't want to believe her, but Skagway had already proven its ghosts were real. Against my better judgment, I decided to see for myself. The Chilkoot Trail wasn't far, a rugged path snaking into the mountains where thousands had once chased their fortunes. By dusk, I was there, the trailhead marked by a weathered sign half buried in snow. The air was sharp, cutting through my jacket, and the fading light painted the peaks in shades of gray and violet. I didn't have to walk far. The trail was eerily quiet, no birds, no wind, just the crunch of my steps. Then I heard it, a faint rhythmic clink, like metal striking stone. My heart thudded, but I pressed on, following the sound. The trail curved around a rocky outcrop, and there, in a small clearing, I saw him. He was more shadow than man, his figure hunched over a frozen stream, a pickaxe in his hands. His coat was tattered, his face obscured by a battered hat, but his movements were relentless, striking at the ice as if it held the gold he'd died for. I called out, my voice trembling, "Who are you?" The clinking stopped. He turned, and I swear the air grew colder. His eyes, two glinting points in a face too worn to be human, locked onto mine. He didn't speak, but a low, guttural moan rose from him, carrying a weight of despair that made my knees buckle. The pickaxe dropped, and he took a step toward me, his form flickering like a bad signal. Behind him, the stream seemed to shimmer, and for a moment I saw faces in the ice. Mary's, Lydia's, their eyes pleading, accusing. I ran. The trail blurred beneath me, branches clawing at my arms, the clink of the pickaxe echoing behind me, growing louder, closer. I didn't stop until I reached the trailhead, my chest burning, my hands shaking. When I looked back, the trail was empty, the sound gone, but the weight of those eyes, his, Mary's, Lydia's, followed me. Back in Skagway, the diner was still open. The waitress didn't ask questions when I stumbled in, just poured me another coffee. "You saw him," she said, not a question. I nodded, unable to speak. She sighed, setting the pot down. "They're all tied together, those three. Mary waits, Lydia rages, and the Prospector searches. They'll never stop, not till they find what they lost. Problem is, nobody knows what that is." I left Skagway the next morning, the Golden North and Red Onion fading in my rearview mirror. But as the ferry pulled away from the dock, I glanced back at the mountains, half expecting to see a figure on the trail, pickaxe in hand. I didn't. Still, I knew they were there. Mary in her window, Lydia in her mirror, the Prospector on his endless hunt. Skagway wasn't just a town. It was a cage for promises that could never be kept, and I'd carry its ghosts with me long after the Alaskan cold faded from my bones. As the ferry cut through the icy waters of Lynn Canal, Skagway's jagged skyline shrank into a haze of mist and memory. I leaned against the railing, the cold metal biting my palms, trying to shake the weight of those ghosts. Mary's hollow gaze, Lydia's anguished wail, the Prospector's relentless clink. The other passengers chatted about glaciers and cruise stops, oblivious to the town's secrets. I now carried my notebook stuffed in my backpack, held my scribbled account of the past few days, but the words felt too small, too flat to capture the dread that clung to me like damp wool. Back in Anchorage, I found a cheap motel and tried to settle in. The city's hum, traffic, neon signs, the clatter of late-night bars felt jarring after Skagway's eerie quiet. I thought distance would dull the unease, but at night, alone in my room, the air grew heavy again. I'd wake to the faint scent of lavender or the echo of a pickaxe, faint but unmistakable. Once I swore I saw a flicker in the motel mirror, a flash of auburn hair, a glint of rage. I stopped looking at my reflection after that. I couldn't let it go. Skagway's ghosts had followed me, or maybe I'd brought them with me, their stories unfinished. I started digging, combing through old records online, piecing together the threads of Mary, Lydia, and the Prospector. Anchorage's library had a dusty archive of Gold Rush-era documents, and I spent days there, flipping through yellowed newspapers and faded letters. I found a mention of a Mary Elizabeth, a seamstress who'd come to Skagway in 1897, engaged to a miner named Thomas Reed. He'd vanished on the Chilkoot Trail during a brutal winter storm, his body never found. Her name appeared again in a 1901 obituary. Died of melancholy, the paper said, in the Golden North Hotel. And that's the story of Skagway's ghosts. Mary forever waiting in room 23. Lydia trapped in the Red Onion's mirrors, and the Prospector still chasing his lost gold on the Chilkoot Trail. This town holds its secrets tight, woven into the wind and the shadows. If you ever find yourself here, tread lightly. Some promises don't die, they haunt. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your heart steady.